On today's Locked On Nationals, we get into the latest top 10 prospect of your Washington Nationals, but not by just any publication. It's by yours truly, who ranks inside the top 10.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can check us out over on YouTube. Again, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including, again, over on YouTube. Just search up Locked On Nationals. Now we get into it with today's programming, discussing a former Nats top 30 prospect who has called it a career. And I want to highlight it because I think it's a good story. And a lot of Nationals fans will know the name. So we'll discuss that. And I'll tell you who retired from the game a little bit later on in the program. But we start off discussing the Nationals top 10 prospects within the system. And look, first and foremost, before we get into it, I want to give you a few names who just barely made or did not make the list, rather. But before we get into it, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started discussing this Nationals team and really getting into more top prospects, because we always kind of release a top 10 prospect list. You see it, and there are different opinions. And I can tell you this, there is one guy inside my top 10 that you will likely not see on any other top 10 list. And I am high on this guy. He's young, and we'll discuss that. And I'll tell you who it is a little bit later on in today's program. But before we get into it, guys who just missed getting inside this top 10. It was kind of tough. I mean, there are a few names that you will recognize, like Robert Hassel III, a former first-round pick, a big part in that San Diego Padres trade with Juan Soto back in 2022. Another name that got left out off this list is someone that you're all very familiar with, someone who I'm still very high on, Andry Lara. I think he could make a jump inside that top 10 at some point this year. Caleb Lomavita, the Nationals' second-round pick, or rather their comp pick in round 1A from this past year's draft, catcher from California. There's a lot of good things about him, and typically you'll see him on any Nationals top 10 prospect rankings entering the season. Those are just a few guys who I left off, and for no particular reason, by the way. I think each of those players are special in their own way. I think Lomavita could be pretty solid down the line. I think Robert Hassel III, if he gets right, if he figures out his mechanics and also just stays healthy, then you could see Robert Hassel III find his way back in the top 10. But ultimately, I think the Nationals have a good problem if you're talking about prospect rankings. They are very top heavy. They've got a very long list of solid prospects that you can kind of look forward to over the next few seasons. So let's just jump right into it. And we start off with number 10. And this one is a name you all know. 2020 first-round pick, Cade Cavali. When I was making my top 10 list, Cade Cavali is one of those guys where I don't really know where he fits. Coming off Tommy John surgery, at one point in time was a top 50 prospect in all of baseball. Someone who was throwing 100 miles per hour. We were waiting and we were anticipating his debut back in 2022. Ultimately, disappointed, got shut down that season. Did not have a very good first start against the Reds in 2022. Entering last year, going into 2023 rather, Tommy John surgery, missed all of 2023. Went into last season. We all thought he would make his big league second start at some point in the summer. That never came into fruition. Only pitched in about 2 games down in the minors before being shut down yet again. And Cade Cavali now finds himself at number 10 in this prospect rankings. Cade Cavali is still someone who I think the Nationals are very high on. But one thing is kind of noticeable about this year's signings is I would not be surprised if the Nationals eventually try to make Cade Cavali a bullpen piece. Now, there could be different ways as to how the Nationals make that move. Number one, maybe the arm injuries are pretty serious and we just don't really know about it because he basically missed 2 full seasons. And really, if you kind of look at it, he's going to be going into spring training healthy, at least is what we know at this point in time. But how effective is he going to be? How long is this ramping up process going to take? And I'm just not sure. There are a lot of questions, and really there's just more questions than answers at this point. That's why you find the former first-round pick at number 10 on this prospect rankings. And just a heads up, I would not be surprised if the Nationals try to move him to the bullpen and see if he can become a solid bullpen piece for them moving forward. So he's at number 10. Number 9, Alex Clemmie, left-handed pitcher, really talented. Got a ton of great stuff. 19 years old. Got him in the Lane Thomas trade. Probably the premier piece in that Lane Thomas trade. Has a flame-throwing fastball as a left-handed pitcher. Has a really good curveball. Also a slider and a changeup that he's probably going to have to work on. But Alex Clemmie, you'll find him in some cases inside the top 5 in this national system. Where I get kind of carried away with him is the fact is he does not throw strikes at a very consistent rate up to this point. Now, the good news is he's 19 years old, and this guy has the stuff to be a very good starting pitcher and ultimately maybe a top 100 prospect by the end of this year if he can prove it and put everything together. But when I say put everything together, I mean throwing strikes, because that is something that he did not do very well this year. Over the course of this season, he walked 63 guys in 92 and a third innings pitch. Just Fredericksburg alone, when he got traded from Cleveland to Fredericksburg, he had 23 innings pitched, about 14 hits, and walked 16 batters. Now, also in that frame, he struck out 123 guys. He's got the punch-out stuff, but he has to throw strikes. And if you're going to be a valuable big league pitcher, you got to throw strikes. I know you might be saying, well, duh, but that's what it is at this point. He has to find the strike zone consistently, and that is why I've moved him down to number 9 for the Nationals at this point. I still think he's very good. I still think he has all the potential in the world, but ultimately, he finds myself sitting here at number 9 on my top 10 list. Number 8, international guy you may not know all too well, Angel Feliz. This kid, in my opinion, is one of the brighter young guys in the system. 18 years old, can play really at shortstop, third base. You can put him at second base as well. But I kind of project him to be an outfielder by the end of his career here in DC. This year, in his first full year in the DSL, as a 17-year-old, he batted .310 with an .849 OPS in just 49 games. Also in that time frame, he had 27 stolen bases. He played really solid defense. He had a couple home runs. He had a couple triples. Extra base hit machine, really. The slug was at .468. Walked 21 times and 36 strikeouts. I can't put my eyes on Angel Feliz, and you can as well, playing down in the DSL. So we just kind of have to box score hunt with this guy. But if you've noticed in years past, like Christian Vaquero, you threw all your international bonus money to. He did not start out hot like this. You've seen guys in the past like Victor Robles did not really start out as hot as Angel Feliz. He is one guy who I really want to look forward to this season when he is down in the FCL, see if they bump him up to Fredericksburg by the end of this year. And again, he is young, really, really young, 18 years old, and just turned 18 years old back in November. He is one of those guys where there's a lot more unknown parts about him, but I think that's also the exciting part here, is that this kid has proven that he can do it at the young level, and only at 17 years old, by the way, putting up these all-star kind of numbers, in which he was an all-star, by the way, in the DSL. Batting over 300, stealing bases, hitting for some power. If you're a Nationals fan, you should be allowed to dream about this guy because it looks as if he's got the potential to be a breakout prospect by the end of 2025. So keep your eye out for Angel Feliz. Also, number 7, Yohandy Morales, 2023, second round pick. You know the name, Yo-Yo Morales from this year. Had some injuries, but ultimately still put up really good numbers across multiple leagues. AA Harrisburg, and also in his rehab assignments down in Fredericksburg, looked really good this season, having 75 games under his belt, batted .283 with a 784 OPS. I still want to see a little bit more power from a power hitter, but I think Yohandy Morales is someone that you should be excited about. And by the way, if he does start out hot this year, whether he starts at AAA or even AA for that matter, I think this is someone who could be up in the bigs by the end of this season, at least tasting a little bit of the coffee up in the bigs. I don't think that's that crazy. In Yohandy Morales, the reason why I put him a little bit further down this list than some may have him, and it's not a knock on him, I just think these top 6 guys that we're going to be naming here could be, and likely will be, the future of your Washington Nationals. And some of these guys will be knocking on the doorsteps of Major League Baseball relatively soon. So Yohandy Morales, he gets my number 7 spot. Now we get inside the top 6. I can tell you this, number 6 will surprise you. Before we get into that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. And of course, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or what you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. Literally, I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, like my own Netflix. I'm already on a family account. I got my parents paying for Netflix. It's awesome. I love it. But also, I was paying for my own Netflix account, and I did not realize that until Rocket Money saved me. So Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And it brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So you can cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Now we get back into it, ranking the Nationals' top 10 prospects. And just to wrap up the first 4 guys of this list, you have number 10, Cade Cavali, number 9, Alex Clemmie, number 8, Angel Feliz, number 7, Yohandy/Yo-Yo Morales. So now we get inside the top 6, where in my opinion, the number 6 guy might be the brightest star the Nationals have this coming year. We'll see. Number 6 is Luke Dickerson. This is someone that, again, has not had any at-bats up in the bigs to this point. Is just 19 years old, just turned 19 years old in August. He did not play at all down at rookie ball in the FCL. But this is going to be someone that you're going to want to see. He is number 1, a huge athlete coming out of the same or relatively same district as Mike Trout did back in the day. But I'm not saying he's Mike Trout. He did break Mike Trout's home run record back in high school, though. So I will throw that nugget out there for you. Big power. Someone who's very athletic, won a hockey state championship in New Jersey, was a team captain, I believe. And the Nationals gave him the largest signing bonus after the first round, and at $3.8 million when he was taken in the second round from this past year's draft. I think Luke Dickerson is going to be the Travis Sakurai this year, where we are raving about this kid, because I think that he has got the potential and also the makeup to be a very good big league player. Number 1, I think he's pretty solid defensively wherever you put him. He's listed as a shortstop right now. I think that this guy will either be third baseman, first base potentially maybe, and even the outfield. You can kind of play him anywhere when you draft an athlete like Luke Dickerson. He's got the skill, and also he's got the power. That is really what puts him over the edge for me. I think if he starts out hot this year, you're going to see him go up to Fredericksburg relatively quick, and then we'll see what happens with them. But I think that this kid is going to be a standout in this national system, and he's going to be a name that a year from now we'll be talking about the way that we're talking about Travis Sakurai now, if you see what I'm saying. So that's my number 6 prospect in this system. Number 5, 2024 first round pick, Siver King. We are now inside the top 5 here. And if you're a top first round pick in any draft, and it was just this past summer, you're going to land inside the top 5 unless you have a crazy loaded farm system like the Baltimore Orioles. But Siver King right now for me we just talked about him a lot the other day. So if you missed that episode, we literally talked about Siver King just last week and the potential that he brings here. I like Siver King, and I love the makeup of what this guy has. His floor is really high, but also it is about the development of Siver King. This guy played multiple years in D2, transferred last year to Wake Forest, and ultimately bursted into the scene and became a first-round pick at being one of the better offensive players at one of the best teams in college baseball. In my opinion, Siver King, good hit tool. He does have a little bit more room for power, which I think will come. He can run. He can steal bases. I think that this guy, if you kind of develop him to the peak of his powers, he's going to be a 2020 kind of guy, and I think it's going to be relatively easy. He's got good exit velocities. You've seen that at Wake Forest. You saw it a little bit this last year, especially the way that he ended in Fredericksburg, only playing in about 20 games, but it's really his 10 games really when he kind of took off. Batted around 300, had a 752 OPS in those 20 games, but also, again, 10 stolen bases, 9 walks, and 13 strikeouts in those 20 games. I love that line right there. Stealing bases, ultimately also just getting on base at a 37% clip. Siver King is someone that maybe just develops and kind of turns this thing around for the Nationals because projects like him scare me. You've seen it flop time and time again. You've seen it with Elijah Green. He has not panned out to the expectations of being a top 5 pick. We thought the Nationals could kind of fix the issues that he has had, but ultimately they have not gotten better whatsoever. Siver King is not as raw as Elijah Green is coming out of high school, but I think Siver King is someone that the Nationals are certainly really excited about moving forward. So that is why he lands inside the top 5 for me. Now we got some bigger name guys. Number 4, 2021 first round pick, Brady House. Brady House is kind of the next guy up here where a lot of people expect him to make his debut at some point, possibly early on this season. And I don't think that's that crazy at all. The 21-year-old has put up some really good numbers. He has been impressive over the last few seasons. At this point today, I think Brady House is probably the most, how do I put it this way, major league ready prospect as far as the big name goes. I think Brady House does have some things to work through, though. He did not end this season very well in AAA. He was pretty solid in AA, but even then, you've seen him have better years. Like in 2023, that was kind of like his bread and butter season, where we finally saw a healthy version of him. He worked his way through 3 different levels across the national system, batted .312 at an .862 OPS, and really was one of, if not the best hitter at all of those levels for that entire 2023 campaign. Now, here's the thing with Brady House, though. I'm not entirely sure where he fits up on this major league roster at this point. I think the Nationals are going to want to take a pretty good look at Jose Tena, and I think they should, by the way. This is someone who showed a lot of effort and just solid quality play, not defensively. We're talking about Tena here, but I think the Nationals are going to want to take a look at him. But Brady House at this point, he's going to be your future at third base. It's just a matter of if he can patch up the holes that he does have in his game. Again, he has a tendency to chase a lot, especially outside the zone. If Brady House can fix up some of these small issues, you will see the best version of Brady House. And in my opinion, he's one of the better prospects in this system. So now we get into the top 3 guys of the Nationals. And I'll give you the number 3 guy here. From the top 2, you're going to have to wait and see. You might not be all that surprised by the top 2, but here's number 3 on my board. Jarlin Susanna. Susanna he might have the highest ceiling as far as players go in this system. Really. even higher than Travis Sakurai, and even higher than Dylan Cruz at this point. Harleen Susanna, when you are just 19, 20 years old, he's 20 years old now, will turn 21 this upcoming March. When you had the year that he just had across two different levels, you have to be extremely excited about what the future holds for this kid. And yes, he is a kid. And he is a big kid, by the way, sitting at 6'6", 235 pounds, throws 101 miles per hour. He's got nasty curveball, a nasty slider. And he's also kind of polished up the changeup a little bit, but his second pitch is that slider, where he has a 60 grade right now over on MLB.com. I've seen other publications put him up at a 65 grade for that slider. That is something that has kind of been his bread and butter swing and miss pitch, and you've seen it used a lot across different levels. But the first part of this season, he was pretty atrocious looking at him. It was not fun to watch. It was not a good product out there. He was walking everybody and giving up a ton of big hits. Something clicked, though. And I remember Andrew Golden of the Washington Post wrote a piece about this. He really kind of ticked up his preparation, really kind of leaned into it and getting ready for those starts. And of course, that is when you saw him take off. And ever since then, he has been one of the Nats' best prospects in the system. And the dream of having Susanna throwing 101, 102 mile per hour fastballs as a starting pitcher, that dream is alive and doing pretty damn well, as you'll see him in a lot of top 100s as they get updated here pretty soon. So now we get inside the top two, and also a former Nats top 30 prospect who has called it a career. We'll discuss that after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel has made the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. I can tell you this, guys. I was betting on the Detroit Lions against the Commanders. I had no faith in the Commanders going into Detroit and beating them. Well, I was wrong. But of course, I was wrong with my friends at FanDuel. And now I'm going to get right because I'm going to bet the Commanders to win the NFC Championship, which is insane to say as we go up to Philly. I've got Jaden Daniels over on all the props, whether it's a passing prop, a rushing prop, and of course, touchdown score, anytime touchdown score, that is. And I got that with our friends at FanDuel. And all you have to do to get on the action is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We get back into it discussing the Nats' top two prospects in the system. And if you made it this far, thank you. And if you haven't, I'm sorry, you're missing out. But number 10, yeah, Cade Cavali. Number 9, Alex Clemmie. Number 8, Angel Feliz. Number 7, Yohandy Morales. Number 6, Luke Dickerson. Number 5, Siver King. Number 4, Brady House. Number 3, Harleen Susanna. Now we get inside the top two. My number 2 prospect, Travis Sakurai. He's not number 1 because we have a former number 2 overall pick just in 2023, and that is Dylan Cruz, who is a major leaguer and who will not be a prospect at some point during the opening week here. So Travis Sakurai will slot into that number 1 as soon as Dylan Cruz graduates, but he hasn't yet, so there's your giveaway for number 1. But Travis Sakurai, again, I mean, this is, in my opinion, a potential top 5 pitching prospect in all of baseball at this point. I think by the end of the season, you're going to see him in Double-A Harrisburg and maybe even Triple-A at this point. He's 20 years old. He turns 21 this April. He was, again, kind of like that Luke Dickerson pick of the Nationals when they signed him for $2.6 million in the 3rd round out of a high school in Texas. This is someone who is going to be like the ace of your staff kind of guy. In his first full professional season, he led the Fredericksburg Nats to the Carolina League Championship. And this is, again, someone who, in my opinion, is your best prospect outside of Dylan Cruz. And if you aren't Dylan Cruz and you aren't Travis Sakurai, you just are on a different scale at this point than what these two are. Sakurai, in my opinion, again, I think at some point he'll be a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. I think he could be one of the best pitching prospects in the game today. And I think if he was like on a Tampa Bay Rays team or the Los Angeles Dodgers, then this guy would already be a top 15 prospect. But I truly do believe in the fact that it depends by organization goes. Like you could have one guy pitching well for the Chicago White Sox who has the same numbers as Travis Sakura. You also have the same guy for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays organization, they have more praise, and they should. They're a good organization. They develop prospects unlike anybody else. I think the Nationals kind of fit that scale, though, where they look at him and they're like, well, are we really buying into this? Not yet. So that's why you don't see him as high as he probably should be. But again, don't get it twisted. This guy's got a fastball that runs up to 100 miles per hour. He is 6'6". He has basically the same build as Harley and Susanna, a little bit slimmer, but he's got a funky delivery. I love everything about Travis Sakura, the strikeout rate, the walk rate, the command that he has. Everything about Travis Sakura screams that this guy will be a stud player up in the big leagues. And who knows? Maybe it comes this year. Maybe it doesn't. Number one, Dylan Cruz. I don't have to get too much into it. You've seen him up in the bigs. You know the name. You know him from LSU. He's the number one prospect right now because, again, he is the number one prospect in all of baseball at this point. I'm not going to put anyone over Dylan Cruz. Now, he does have some things to improve, but we'll see what the Nationals do. I think Dylan Cruz will be just fine. But as we get more into the offseason, we'll discuss and preview the season because, again, pitchers and catchers report in less than 1 month. We're not that far from baseball being played. And you're just about, 2.5 months from opening day here in D.C.? It's not that crazy. Kind of crazy. Actually, you think about it, it is pretty crazy. So only 2.5 months away from baseball. I can't wait. But I want to highlight a former top 30 prospect, Jake Alu from the Nationals, a 24th round pick out of Boston College in 2019. Jake Alu has retired from the game of baseball. And if you remember in 2023, he was kind of up and down in the Nationals. He went to AAA, was solid there, got called up to the bigs, and batted over 200, played his role. He knew what his role was. Also meeting him down in spring training last year. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. Couldn't have been someone that you just don't root for. You got to root for a 24th round pick coming out of college because let's be honest, not many people give those guys chances. Like when you're a 24th round pick, especially when the Nats just won the World Series, you're coming out of college, the odds are stacked up against you. He made the most of them, and that is why I got to recognize him on the podcast today. Jake Alu's calling it a career. It was a very good one. The guy saw major league action, and he was not a bad prospect by any means whatsoever. A 24th round pick making it inside the top 30 and then ultimately making up into the big leagues. You got to love what you see here. So Jake Alu, shout out to him. Shout out to the Nationals for giving him an opportunity. And the kid made it. He proved a lot of people wrong getting up in the big leagues. And I thought that was really cool. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.